Ladies and gentlemen, it is Case the Producer here on Q101. It's A Case For, an interview series in which I've coerced management into letting me talk to my favorite bands. And I am so excited today. The pleasure and the privilege is mine sitting across from me on this green couch. Laura Jane Grace, how are you?
I'm good.
Good. You have a real delightful energy, let me say. We've been talking for a minute before cameras are rolling. I feel very comfortable. I feel very safe. It's good to see you. It's good to meet you.
That's called 30 milligrams of THC.
Oh, that's what that is. Ooh, okay, interesting. I was on a Zoloft for a long time because they thought I needed some help, and then it actually did more harm than good. And now this is all natural, baby. This is what I'm working with.
Right on. Well, if we're getting right into it, my wife and I actually have been like messing around with this. Like they're called happy pills.
Okay.
You can check them out on Instagram. I feel like I'm like paying for them right now.
This feels like it's
microdosing.
Okay.
Mushrooms, like that does wonders for me.
Really? Okay, so
Yeah,
I'm straight edge, so I don't know anything about this.
It doesn't. That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So so is it like a psychedelic, like microdosing mushrooms?
Mildly.
Okay.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And you can just operate in your daily existence like that. Like you can
go
go to the store.
Euphoria.
Oh my God. When I was growing up and you started seeing the first like kids in high school that were like, hey, like I tried this or I'm on this, like they'd be at school and they'd be like, I'm on this right now. I couldn't comprehend it because to me, just straight edge was like, oh, I'm just not going to do it. That makes sense. And then I saw these people operating in the real world that were just like, I'm trying it. It's fun. It blows my mind.
I remember doing cocaine in like freshman algebra, but I definitely failed freshman algebra.
I failed algebra too. Wasn't on cocaine. I'm just an idiot. Well, thank you so much for being here. By the time this interview is out, you will have just played 2 successful homecoming shows at Sleeping Village, and you will have a new record out, Hole in My Head. Let me ask you, as somebody that's sort of been through this a little bit.
I feel like you should have rephrased that hole in your head, but yes, Hole in My Head is the name of the record. Yeah.
You sort of been around the block a time or two. You're a bit of a successful musician, dare I say.
Thank you.
Do you still get excited putting out new records, or is it just another thing you have to do?
Yeah, but here's the dilemma, right? So, I recorded this record in February of last year. So, like, that time in between when you finish recording something and when it comes out as an artist is just brutal. It is the worst. So, you can allow yourself a little bit of excitement, but then you have to, like, rein that excitement in because the rest of the world is out there to crush it. So, you have to protect it.
Do you have things on the record where, 9 months after the fact, you're like, should have done that, should have changed that lyric, or should have changed that riff, or are you pretty happy with the record, all things considered?
That stuff's mostly mixed stuff.
Okay.
Like, I'll listen to a record and be like, oh, I wish the snare was, like, 1.5 dB lower, or like things like that. But like I feel really solid about the songwriting stuff when I'm going into the studio usually.
The singles I've heard have been absolutely brilliant. I'm happy to have new music from you just in general. In terms of not the agonizing process of waiting for the record to come out, but once the record is out, are you at a point where you can ignore all reviews? How much intel are you getting from what the greater world thinks of the work that you've put out?
I don't really read the reviews or anything like that.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
It's frustrating sometimes because like I know I got to retweet them or whatever, or repost them and stuff like that. And you'll like go to repost it and it'll be like, don't you want to read the article first? It's like, no, I don't. I just want to do the thing I got to do. Like I don't need somebody else to talk about it. I was actually like kind of like subtweeting about it earlier, and I hate talking about Twitter because of what it is right now. But like, it's so frustrating feeling like tasked with having to explain what you did, or like, I don't know, trying to like, I don't know. Reading the way other people understand something you've made is like frustrating to me sometimes. So I'd rather just like let it be.
Yeah, because that's got to be really frustrating as an artist, where you can write something, but once you put it out into the world, it feels like it's not yours anymore. And you're going to deal with thousands and thousands of people that have their own relationship to this thing that might be completely detached from the original meaning of it. Is that a fair assessment?
I think at this point I've just learned that first impressions oftentimes don't really matter that much. So it's not, and it's never been about that first, like the way first things are first received for me.
Interesting. Okay. I'm so curious about artist at your pedigree, because a lot of the times what we do on this show is I'm talking to bands that, for a Chicago reference, are maybe headlining the Bottom Lounge for the first time, or maybe they're headlining the Metro, or maybe they're opening for somebody on the Aragon. It's their first big tour. You're somebody who had this incredible DIY pedigree, and then you signed to a major label, and then you're now in this existence where you're Laura Jane Grace. People know who you are. But there has been a sort of level of time that has passed. Is it comforting knowing, like, hey, I've been around the block or time or two. I'm going to put out my album and a certain amount of people are just going to gravitate towards it no matter what. Not almost having a safety net in a way, you know, because you're putting this record out through Polyvinyl. What's it like just persisting as an artist for 20 years at this point?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know. My brain almost refuses to think about these things.
No, that's
and
okay.
You can't make me do it.
I will not.
I don't know. Like, yeah. It just is what it is. You know, like, I mean, it's awesome. Like, it's awesome that people are into what I do, and it's awesome that there is like a fan base out there, and you like can look and think like, oh, cool, that's the result of like touring the world for like fucking 2 decades. You know, is like those people are there and like they come out to see you play, and it's rad when you get to meet people and you get to know people. But at the same time, you're always trying to like, I don't know, do something different, and you're trying to like reach new people. Like, I think if you weren't still trying to reach new people, then it would be kind of pointless to continue on in a way. Like, I'm only 26 years old. I'm not trying to like rest on my laurels.
And you look 23. You look
like,
fantastic.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. It's the estrogen.
It's such an interesting time in the world of punk, which I would hope that you still hopefully feel like you have a home in somewhere, because I can speak as somebody growing up with Against Me already having a number of records out. You were one of the gateways. I mean, I especially, I had a friend one day, I sat down in class, and he said, you have to hear this. And it wasn't Against Me, I apologize, but it was AJJ and Ramshackle Glory, Pat the Bunny's old band, changed my life. Because at that point, I knew I had wanted to be involved in punk, but I didn't really know what it was. And then he's like, well, you got to check out this band Against Me. They're kind of all here because of Against Me. We're seeing changing tides in the punk scene in the sense that it seems like big businesses creeping in and radio stations are suddenly going, well, wait a minute, who's Turnstile? Who's Military Gun? You have been faced throughout, I would say, most of your career with the label of selling out. Do you think that still exists in 2024? What were your experiences like to maybe some of the hurdles that modern bands don't have to clear?
This thing's still on, right?
I don't know. Still on.
Big questions, right? I don't know. Like, I feel like to a certain extent, like all artists are mercenaries, and you're out there and you're just trying to like survive, you know? And like, if punk rock is all about like think for yourself, like once you've like learned that value and then you're out there living your life, you should be allowed to think for yourself, and you know, the opportunities that come your way, you should be able to decide like what the pros and cons are and what, you know, like what the value is to you. So I'm not going to criticize like other artists for like, I don't know, the way they get their music out there or what they do. But yeah. Capitalism sucks.
Oh,
you know?
not a fan. Do not like it. Did you ever feel like there was a point where you lost agency in the vision of what you were trying to do because there were too many people involved and it wasn't the thing that maybe you set out to do initially in Gainesville, Florida?
I mean, that always happens whenever there's too many people involved. Is you kind of like lose agency, you know? But that doesn't have anything to do with like. Don't frame that as like a major label thing or a corporate thing. You know, like that can happen on the indie level too, and that happens within bands, you know, when you get like other people involved, like producers or whatever, you know, like it's easy to get lost in that sometimes.
Do you feel like you ever are able to get that back, or is it sort of a thing that you have to accept, hey, once we've crossed this level, there's no point of return? Or do you feel like
what are we talking about
just
exactly?
in terms of
this is getting so deep and
no, I apologize.
Now.
I apologize.
Just
in terms of
I just want to make sure I'm understanding
the agency you have as an artist. Do you ever feel like there's been a point in time where maybe you've been misconstrued to an extreme degree? Do you feel like you're able to get people back on your level of understanding? Or you're just still shouting out into the void?
Misconstrued in what way? Like lyrically misconstrued, or like your
or in terms of presentation and image? Yes.
Like, so, like for instance, like being a band that like came up in the DIY scene, signed to a major label, were called sellouts, right?
Yes.
So then people label you sellouts,
yes,
and then you like come back from that is what you're talking about.
A much more eloquent way of saying what I was trying to say.
Right on. I mean, like, you know, the way it worked for us, like I feel like it went for a couple bands, and I know you're referencing like Dan Ozzi's book Sellout, and there's like, you know, even Thursday are in that book, and they talk about it too, where like they went through the major label stuff, and then you come out the other end, and like you start putting out indie records again or whatever. But like at the same time, the people who were there who were criticizing you are like growing up and realizing like the stupidity of their standpoint in a lot of ways around it. But like, I don't know. Like, I think it's like about like growing and changing and like testing boundaries and like that's okay if people don't understand what you're doing for a period of time, and you have to be okay as yourself, like as an artist, and like feel confident in what you're doing to say no, fuck off, you know. And that for me like was transitioning in a lot of ways, you know, like where I knew the reasons why I was making the decisions I was making, and that was because I was a closeted transsexual. So that is why I signed to a major label, because I had $1 million offer, right? And I'm like, cool, that's a good opportunity for me, and all these people around me, they don't fucking know shit about me, right? You know, so I don't know, you know, like I'm just out there trying to be true to myself and make the decisions that I think are right, you know.
Do you remember the first thing you bought once you signed your major label offer?
I didn't buy shit.
No, nothing?
I'm not like wasteful with money. No.
No.
Yeah.
Oh man, you got that stockpiled. Well, since we're on that subject, can we talk about the 10-year anniversary of Transgender Dysphoria Blues real quick? The wonderful Stereo Gum article that just came out that I would recommend everybody read if you're a fan of the record. This is a brazen question, if you will, but if you could go back 10 years and tell Laura Jane Grace 10 years ago anything, do you have a word of advice for her at that point in time?
I would have quit smoking cigarettes a little sooner.
That's huge.
Yeah.
That's
10
huge.
years
Gotta
ago,
do that.
I started smoking cigarettes again when I moved to Chicago, and August 1st, 2013, and then I smoked again until 2016. I would have quit a little sooner.
Is there a level of emotional impact that comes when you put out a record like that, where now I would assume after every show you have people, maybe even in passing, pouring out their life story to you and telling you how much that record means to them? Is there a heaviness that you feel like you have to escape from there, or is it all pretty welcoming and it's just a badge of honor to have something that resonates with people on such a level?
Well, I mean, it's incredible, like you just said, that it's amazing that it resonates with people and everything. But sometimes people can be a little casual with their trauma, and like you'll be like outside of a show, and they come up and tell you the most intense experience from their life that's like heartbreaking, and then you're expected to just go on like living as if that wasn't like
on to Oklahoma City now, I guess.
Yeah. So that can be a little odd sometimes. You know?
I have never been in a band. I've never written a song. I like talking to bands, but I don't have any musical talent. So I'm just curious, from such a terrific songwriter like yourself, your point of view on this. You obviously put your heart and soul into what you write. Are there ever times where it scares you with how honest you're becoming on records and you start to pull back a little bit? Or do you feel like this is your purpose, if you will, to just write fully, authentically, 100%?
I don't know how to do it any other way. You know, like that's what you're doing. You're like wringing yourself out every time, and you're kind of starting over every time too. Like, yeah. So I don't know how to do it any other way.
I wouldn't want you to do it any other way. I'm thrilled about the new record. Go see Laura Jane Grace on tour this spring. You start that tour in March. You're coming through, what, Midwest into East Coast-ish?
It starts in Indianapolis. I know
Yes,
that. And then
my
it goes,
hometown.
goes
We're going to
east.
treat you well.
Cool.
Well, Laura Jane Grace, thank you so much. The new record is out. It's Hole in My Head. It is phenomenal. Thank you so much for your time, Laura.
Thank you.